Peter Lynch is one of the most successful investors of all time. Lynch managed a fund at Fidelity that earned an unbelievable return of 29.2% during his time in charge of the fund. In this video, we're going to be going over Lynch's valuation, which is a valuation model invented by Peter Lynch in order to decide if a stock is undervalued, fairly valued, or overvalued. He talks about this valuation model in his book, One Up on Wall Street. And if we come over here to the left, we can see the exact formula that he created to find a stock's fair value. So the different elements in this formula are going to be the future growth of earnings per share, the dividend yield, and the price to earnings ratio. So let's go ahead and jump over to a clean page, and we will start our valuation model. So the first thing we're going to come up here and do, just for the valuation, is we're going to enter the company ticker that we're going to be valuing. And so for this example, let's go ahead and say we want to value Verizon. So I'm just going to plug in their stock ticker right here. So the first thing we are going to need is the future earnings per share growth for Verizon. There's multiple places you can find this data, but what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to Yahoo Finance. This is a free resource everyone has access to. And if we come over here and click on analysis, this data will load in. And if we scroll down here to the bottom, we can see we're going to get some analyst expectations for the next 5 years, and it's 3.35%. Now, maybe you'll do some research on industry expectations and your own expectations, but for this example, we're going to go ahead and go with 3.35. So I'll plug this in right here and hit enter. Now, the next thing we are going to need, as we can see in our formula, is the dividend yield. So let's go ahead and jump back over to Yahoo Finance. If we scroll back up, let's go ahead and click on the summary tab right here for Verizon. And we can see the current dividend yield for Verizon is sitting at 5.79%. So let's go ahead and jump back over to our spreadsheet, and we'll plug in 5.79. Now, the last thing that we are going to need is our price to earnings ratio. So there's actually multiple ways you can pull this, obviously, but I'm going to show you a little trick. If you're in Google Sheets, you can use the Google Finance function to automatically pull this in. So what we're going to do is we'll click in equals Google Finance, open parentheses. We'll click on Verizon stock ticker, add a comma, and in quotations, just go ahead and type in PE and close that off. And you can see that right here. I'll be sure to put this formula in the description below. When I hit enter, we can see that data for the price to earnings ratio is going to automatically load in. So if I were to come up here and let's say I wanted to look at AT&T, we can see that data would update automatically. So that's just a cool little trick. But back to the actual valuation. So now we have all the data we need for Peter Lynch's valuation. Now we just need to plug it into this formula. So if we come here to our results tab, what we're going to do is we're going to type in equals, and we're going to open our quotations, and we can see what we're going to do is we're going to take our future earnings per share growth. We'll click here, and then we're going to add that with our dividend yield. So you can see the first part of the formula here. I'm going to close off the quotations, and then I'm going to divide this by the price to earnings ratio. So I come over here and click on our price to earnings ratio. We now have our formula listed right here, and I'll hit enter, and you can see we now have our result. So if you've done valuation models before, you might be a little bit confused because it's not showing a share price right here. So this is actually a different type of valuation. Essentially what it's going to do is it's going to show us if a stock is overvalued, fairly valued, or undervalued. And we can see I have the key listed right here. So if our valuation comes to less than 1, that's typically going to be a stock that's a little bit more overvalued. If it's kind of in between 1 to 1.5, that's considered a stock that is more fairly valued. If it's close to 2, it's considered a stock that is undervalued. Close to 3, then it's very undervalued. So when we look at Verizon right here, we can see our result was 1.03. So in this scenario, we would consider this a stock that's fairly valued and maybe even a little close to being overvalued in this scenario. But let's go ahead and do one more quick example. Let's say we want to value AT&T, one of Verizon's competitors. We'd come up here. All we need to do is plug in AT&T stock ticker, and I'll hit enter, and we can see the price to earnings ratio will automatically load in. Now we just need to apply our future earnings per share growth and our dividend yield. So let's go ahead and jump back over to Yahoo Finance. I'll come up here and plug in AT&T stock ticker, and I'll click right here. And once this data loads in, we'll scroll down. We can see dividend yield currently sitting at 6.02%. So we'll go ahead and plug that in right here. And now let's go ahead and jump over and look at our future earnings per share growth for AT&T. So we'll click on the analysis tab right here. And we'll scroll down, and we can see again the expected next 5 years earnings per share showing negative 3.86. Now let's go ahead and say that we did some of our own research and looked at other analysts and industry expectations, and we felt a more fair valuation was -1. What we would do is we come up right here, and we're just going to plug in -1 and hit enter. And we can see based off of this, our result is 0.75. So that is less than 1. So this would be considered a stock that is currently overvalued. So if you're trying to do a comparison between Verizon and AT&T, according to Peter Lynch's valuation and our inputs, it looks like Verizon has a little bit more of a fair price, but there you go. That is how you value a stock using Peter Lynch's valuations. Now, I'm a huge believer in the fact that calculating the intrinsic value of a stock is by far the best way to make investment decisions. And I would suggest not using just one valuation model to decide if a stock is a stock you should be buying. For me personally, when I evaluate a company, I'm typically going to look at 4 different valuation models. I'm going to look at a discounted cash flow model. I'm going to look at Benjamin Graham's valuation, a multiples valuation, and a dividend discount model. So if you've watched the channel before, you know that's something I do on almost all of my stock analysis. I have spreadsheets to all of my stock and intrinsic value models on my Patreon, so you can head over there if you're interested in this spreadsheet or in any of my other spreadsheets. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.